Hello, hello. This is The Hidden Truths, the TV talk show for the thinking American. My name is Agi, and I'm the host. Tonight, we are going to show you something that, under different circumstances, I think you probably could not believe. Let me lead you to the story by asking you this. How would you like to have a little device or a motor that you can put in your backyard, in your basement, or in your house? You connect it to the electric system in the house, or you plug it in the wall, and it will produce electricity enough for you to run your home without you putting any electricity or gasoline or anything into the motor. Well, it's really very simple. If you had a device like that, you wouldn't need the electric company anymore. In fact, you'd be totally independent. In fact, the electric company will send you a check every month instead of you paying them. Why am I saying something stupid like that? Well, it's not stupid. Because I have seen the evidence of the fact that, yes, there is such a motor. And tonight, you're going to see the evidence to that it is such a motor, and how you can get yourself one later on. Well, some of the sharpest scientists in the country, NASA scientists, university professors, individual scientists, they have studied this motor, made measurements and tests on it, and they have found out, yes, it does work. These can actually run your home, run your manufacturing plant. It can be put in cars, airplanes. It can be put in just about anything that needs power. Well, this is not the only invention that has been covered up by the status quo. I've been doing a lot of digging around in the Patent Bureau in Washington over the last several years, and I'm finding out that there's some enormously strange patents that has been granted. I have patents on flying saucers, anti-gravity systems. In fact, the earliest patent that I find that show you how to burn water in your automobile dates back to 1913. A more workable one was patented in 1930. Well, we haven't seen that one either. And of course, then we have Joseph Newman and his energy machine. Joseph Newman is with here tonight, and he is going to be talking about his energy machine and how it was developed, how it works, and what it can do for you. There's a phenomenal story behind this. And with no more undue talk here, I want to introduce Joseph Newman. And thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Augie, for having me. And this is the way that this technology gets out, as well as anything else that's been trying to be covered up by the power brokers who do exist.
Yeah.
And this is something that I have given my life for the human race. I started on this in 1965. I believe that it's a gift from God Almighty through a mere servant of myself to humanity. And it's something that I've always been given the wisdom to know that it would totally change the world in a most beneficial way. Because if you give people an energy device that they can carry anywhere in the world, imagine young people growing up in such a world. They'll start new companies that you and I and other people living at this time won't even think of, because they can carry it anywhere in the world. They can travel to other solar systems by means of an energy device that will carry them throughout the universe. And I know the magnitude of what this is, and like I said, a lot of scientists that you had mentioned has verified my life's work. Over 30 reputable scientists came and tested the invention, put their reputation on the line. They were tried to be intimidated by the same power brokers. And it's through the people that this technology will come forward. And I appreciate very much that you've had me on so that people can see this for themselves. And like I had mentioned to you, I'd love to get the young people involved in this. And Max Planck paid the young people out there a very high compliment. And he made this statement: in the advancement of new technology, it's not done by the old. They die away. It's the young who grow up familiar with it that bring it forward. Now, he was well read in history. Now, it's through the young people. This is your future.
Yes.
And it's you who will help me bring it forward. And if I can get the college here, which I think that based on what we were talking about, that we may be able to do this, if I can get the college here to test it, get the young people behind it, they can spread it across the world to all the other colleges. And that's the way that this technology will come forward, in a big, big, big way. And it's something that will change the world in a tremendously beneficial way. And it'll do more to bring world peace than all the kings and queens and politicians who've ever lived. Because it's easy to get a man to go to war if he looks at his children's eyes and he sees misery and he sees no hope. It's easy to get that man to go to war if he sees these other people over on this other side of this great sea or river or whatever, and they have plenty, yet they're not sharing, they're not helping. It's easy to get those groups of people to go to war. Now, if you make available to them an energy device that you can even mechanize everything, you don't fire people, what you do is have them work less hours. This is something I used to teach economics in college, and I know that there's a lot that the power brokers have done that is wrong. And if I get a chance, I got 2 pages in here I'd like to read. It's to young people before I leave here. And it'll inspire them, because it's written to do one thing for them, to make them believe in themselves, that anything they can imagine is probably possible by some means. And we have all of history that proves that. And if young people are so taught, they will change the world in a most beneficial way that we have not done. Well, we've done it in a very negative way. If people can be taught that way. Now, won't you ask me any question that you would like to ask me?
Well, first of all, you, about a week ago, you sent me down a videotape, which was a couple hours worth of movie footage on there, or basically how this all have come about. It was extremely interested, and I did take an excerpt from that. We have a videotape that we will be running a little bit later on.
Okay, great.
Because there's some good stuff in it, I really think people need to see, which has also the how the original model looked like and so on. You also wrote a book here. Let me show this book.
Okay.
This is quite a volume. I was just looking at this before the show a little bit, and there's some things in here that Nikola Tesla would be envious about. And we will show you a phone number later on where you can get your hands on this book. This is some phenomenal stuff, so we'll show this later on also. Let me ask you that. You have created a machine here that actually puts out more energy than what it uses.
That's correct.
Where does that energy come from?
And so that's a good question. So that people can understand this who maybe are not highly technical, I'd like them to think about something. For thousands of years, man had running water, and he could stand in it, and he could feel the pressure on it. And he could see it at times flood and tear down things. Yet it still took us thousands of years to ever put a water wheel in that moving water. Now, he could see the water. He could feel the water. Now, anyone who's ever played with a magnet when they were a child, and you were mystified by what you felt when they'd take a piece of iron and try to pull it out of your hand or pull the iron towards you, you sensed that there was something there, and you were correct. That is kinetic energy. It is literally a river of energy, just like a running river. It is Einstein's equation of E equals mc squared. This energy from a magnet, from an electromagnet, a permanent magnet, only appears when you get molecular alignment within that material. Now think about something. If you take heat energy and put it into that material, the molecules will become disaligned. The magnetic field goes back into the boundaries of the material, and man does not have access to it. So what is it? If it only appears when you get molecular alignment within that piece of mass, then it's obvious then the energy in the magnetic field must be the energy that makes up that mass from which it came. It is literally a river of energy. And what I have done is started on this in 1965. This book is a result of me taking years of study, research, experimentation, given a unified mechanical field theory, by the laws of a gyroscope, I explain many things in science, all the way to the wave and particle theory of light that has not been explained before. And then, and only then, that I applied for a patent in 1979. My patent attorney said, Joe, nobody's going to believe this unless you built it. I didn't build it because I was so certain that I was right, I didn't feel the need to build it. Then I built it, and it worked exactly as I said it would. In fact, Dr. Roger Hastings, one of the senior physicists for Sperry Univac, he had came to my home many times, and once he came in my house, and he said, Joe, I want to pay you a compliment. And I said, what for? He said, Joe, I'm well read. He said, you've done something that I have never seen done in science. And I said, what's that? He said, normally in science, you'll find that somebody comes up with a theory, and then years later, somebody will come up with a mechanical device that will prove that theory. Or either somebody will invent something, that's some kind of mechanical device, or chemical, or whatever. Then somebody will come up with a theory explaining that years later. He said, Joe, you did the exact opposite. You did the whole spectrum. You studied for years, you experimented for years, then and only then did you apply for a patent. You were so certain you were right, you didn't feel the need to build it. You built it after your patent attorney said nobody would believe you unless you did build it. And then it worked exactly as you said it would. And he said, Joe, I wanted to compliment you. And he's on that tape that you're going to show that talking about the magnitude of what this would do for humanity. Now, he had over 200 other scientists who worked for him under Sperry Univac. He was a senior physicist for Sperry Univac. Spent many, many, many hours testing this invention, many, many weeks, a week at a time. He'd come to my home in Mississippi and test this invention and see the magnitude of what it would do. And that's where this energy comes from. It is Einstein's equation of E equals mc squared. You're converting mass into energy on a 100% conversion process. This invention is not a result of an accidental discovery. It's a result of a dedicated effort on my part of my life from the time I was a young man, way back in 1965, to give something to the humanity that would make the world a better place. And that's what's driven me.
Actually, what you're saying is that we understand parts of Einstein's theory, but we don't understand the whole thing. And there's parts of that thing that can be applied in different ways, just like this one.
That's correct. And see, Einstein was a very honest person. Now, he was a great mathematician, but he stated that he had no mechanical ability. He stated he was so unmechanical that even states in his biography that he went to watch a man make a lens by hand because he was so mystified that someone could do this. Now, Einstein was very honest. Now, I'm exactly the opposite. I do not use high mathematics, but I must mechanically understand something before I will accept it. And that's what made me write this book. That's what made me understand the energy in our magnetic field was kinetic energy and to follow the laws of a gyroscope. Was my desire mechanically. And Schrodinger, who was back in Einstein's time, who was a great physicist, he stated that I, or someone like me, would do exactly what I've done. And the way he worded it was very eloquent. He said, for those people who consider themselves to be an optimist, of which I consider myself to be one, he said, a simple mechanical explanation will come forward that will replace all the mumbo-jumbo mathematics that now prevails our industry. Now, Einstein totally agreed with him. He believed a simple mechanical explanation will come forward. And that's what this is. And it may be interesting to the public as to why that I saw this so easy in 1965. What I had was that I had experience when I was 10 years of age. I was shooting ducks on a pond with a .22 rifle. And I used to climb down on my belly, and I'd aim at the head, so I'd either kill it or miss it clean. And one morning I missed the duck, and I heard the bullet deflect off the water and hit up in some big oak trees on the other side of the hill. I forgot about the ducks and shot at that spot on the pond about another 15 times, and then got up and walked around the pond, walked up the hill, and I could see a big spot about that big where it knocked the bark off this massive oak trees that was on our property. And I was so dumbfounded about what I saw because I knew I could take a flat rock, you know, and deflect it off of a pond. But I never picked up a rock. You know, you pick up a round rock and try to do that, and it'd go in the water. It wouldn't deflect. It had to be flat. The flatter, the better. And I knew the bullet was pointed. I knew that it spiraled. And I couldn't believe that that water could deflect that bullet. I went back down to the water, spent 15 minutes sticking my finger in the water at different angles to see if I could feel any difference in the resistance of my finger going in that water. I could feel none. And so it really stuck in my mind. So in 1965, I picked up a book, Tidal Energy, put out by Time, and it was covering every major energy device in the world. in the middle of the book, it had 2 or 3 pages on Faraday's generator. And as I read that, the words I've always said, it's like a hand came out and slapped me in the face. Because instantly, the same experience I had when I was 10 years old again popped in my mind. Because it said that you could move a conductor at a snail's pace in a magnetic field, and lo and behold, this current would take off at the speed of light. Now, I was just an old country boy, but that's like you telling me you're going to take a fence post and reach down and touch a rock, and that rock's going to take off at the speed of light. As an old country boy, I'm going to say, let me see you do this, because I know you can't. And I knew there was something moving in that magnetic field. And it took me 3 years to figure out what this was. And then one morning, in 1968, some kids woke me up trying to get a wheelie on their bike. That's when they tried to jerk the front wheel off the ground. And the little kids could get it about that far. And it dawned on me instantly, well, I'm going to make a flywheel, 80-pound flywheel, which I did, put it on a 3-wheel bike, put the flywheel above the back axis, took a positive clutch out of a 30-horsepower motor. A kid get on it, build up inertia in that flywheel, engage that positive clutch, and when he did, the front end, he'd jump off the ground like this, and they'd leave black streaks on the pavement about that long, and kids' eyes would get that big, and they loved it. But I was concerned about their safety, because that thing was powerful, and I had heard the word that a gyroscope was a stabilizer. Now, for 3 years, I had wondered about when you moved a conductor in a magnetic field, because when you pushed it down, the current would go one way. If you pushed the conductor up, the current would go the other way. If you went to the opposite end of the magnet, the direction of the current reversed. If you went parallel, no matter how vigorously you moved the wire up and down, you'd get zilts. Nothing. No matter how much energy you put up in your motion, as long as you kept a parallel relationship. Now that told me there's something in this magnetic field that's mechanical. Because you could take the wire and turn it over 180 degrees and hook it to the galvanometer, nothing would change. It was the motion relative to some mechanical entity in the magnetic field. And I was certain that this was the truth. Now, for 3 years, I wanted to know why, and when I went to the library in Mobile, Alabama, got a book on gyroscopes, and I looked at the laws of a gyroscope, instantly, it popped in my mind. This is the mechanical entity, because the laws of a gyroscope is exactly the same thing you observe when you move a conductor up and down through a magnetic field. Because if you take a gyroscope, spin it up, push down on its axis, it'll pivot one way. You push it up, it'll pivot the other way. You go at the opposite end, everything reverses. You push down parallel to its axis, it will not pivot. It clearly showed me the entity in a magnetic field had to be a gyroscopic particle. It would spin in at C, and it was going forward at C. It was a mechanical essence of Einstein's equation of E equals mc squared. And so in 1968, I was certain that I was correct. I didn't care what the rest of the world was saying, because they could not answer my honest question. How do you know why can you tell me what's happening when you move this conductor through a magnetic field? I'd go to the physics department. I incorporated astronomy in this, all the way through the universe, showing that there's a magnetic field that prevails our entire galaxy, and that this gyroscopic particle went all the way to the wave and particle theory of light, and I explained that it did, and this is something that science has argued about for over 100 years, and I've noticed that a lot of technical people, when I've shown them this, they've all been amazed, and I'll give it a demonstration to you that'll amaze you. And what they had argued about for hundreds of years, they noticed that if they had a big hole and they had light going through it, that they'd notice a little fringe around the outer periphery of this light as it cast an image, and they call it a phenomenon. They couldn't explain it exactly. They knew it was there. Now, what really blew the scientific community's mind, everything worked correctly as they predicted, as they went down smaller and smaller in that whole diameter, letting the light through it. The image would get smaller and smaller and smaller until they got down to a little tiny hole. Then all of a sudden, it'd make a tremendous image, and it acted like a wave. And the scientific community was dumbfounded. Now, if you look at the laws of a gyroscope, and you take Newtonian mechanics and the laws of hydraulics, it explains that to a T. Because I say light is gyroscopic particles going in the same direction, and when they try to go through a large hole, you have pressures, the laws of hydraulic apply. They move at right angles to the outer periphery. It's like if you've got 3 people trying to walk through a door, the people on the outside, they brush against the door and they feel it. The person on the inside is not affected as much. It's the same thing with the light. As it goes through the outer periphery of it, it's going to move at right angles to that force, and it causes that little wave that's around that area of the image that's cast.
It just bends the light slightly then, right?
Well, it moves at right angles to it. And as it does, it comes out of phase to your eyesight, and so you see this out of focus. And now picture, though, by the laws of mechanics, if you get down and you picture these gyroscopic particles trying to get through this hole and just trying to squeeze through there, and Newtonian mechanics is saying it's going to move at right angles to this force, and when it does, this is what it's going to do. It's going to open up, out. So you can see my hand, I'll do it this way. When it goes through there, it's going to open out, and it makes this big image. Now, the first time I noticed that I had put forth a unified field theory was Dr. Smith, who was Chief of Space Environment Branch at Huntsville. He contacted me saying, Joe, that he couldn't get anybody at NASA in Huntsville, Alabama to debate with me, but they wished to compliment me on my efforts to put forth a unified mechanical field theory, that my logic was so rigid that they could not attempt to debate with me. And he said, Joe, what they're saying is that you're right. And just like on the astronomy section of this book, I showed that the Earth's true axis is a result of the Earth's magnetic axis warped in outer space as it aligns with the sun. I took the known astronomy numbers, and they were so exacting that Dr. Smith, who was Chief of Space Environment Branch in Huntsville in 1977, had his statistician look at those numbers. He said the chances of me being wrong was almost totally impossible. Now what it shows is that the Earth is an electromagnetic device. In its motion and position relative to the sun is relative to the effects of electromagnetic energy as it travels in its orbit around the sun, and the sun is the same way in its own galaxy, and our galaxy is that to some other central body. I'm very certain of that. And many things have been done in science now proving the things that I said was correct, even to the point where they were saying that the universe was expanding straight out. Now they're saying, well, they find this is not true. Now, I had predicted this and published in this book in 1984, that they had found that these orbits was such massive distance. If you took any short line of that, I don't care if it's 1,000,000 miles you take of it, it's still a short line relative to the distance of its orbit. So when you look at it, it's going to appear to you like a straight line, but it's being curved. And they have found this to be the case since they had put a telescope in outer space and been making observations, and they're dumbfounded by it. But yet I wrote this up and predicted it would be in 1984. It shows that the magnitude of what this technology is to the human race, and as anyone can understand, though, the status quo people have fought it tooth and nail because the history of man hasn't changed. The mentality of man hasn't changed. The canal people fought the railroad people tooth and nail. And my question has always been this to the power brokers who exist now. Look back at the canal people. What would have happened if the canal people had got in on the ground floor with the railroad people and put in some of their money with the railroad people? Now, they went bankrupt. Canal people went out of business. But if they had to put some of their money in on the ground floor with the railroad people, they would have made more money and done more for humanity than the canal system ever could have. The same thing is true here. If all people would put their money in with me to get this technology produced for the human race in a massive way, they'd make more money than they ever made off of oil, and they would do more for humanity than oil ever has. Now, oil has been beneficial. It's been a stepping stone. All through history, God gives us certain technology that carries us so far. But it has reached its limit. It is polluting the earth at a rapid rate.
Well, something has to be done very quickly, and I know that. If you see this one on the market and would be distributed en masse, what do you really think would happen to the, let's say, the economic systems and people at large? What do you think will happen?
This is going to have a phenomenal beneficial effect upon the entire human race. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. Now, Dr. Rasha Hastings, you'll see him on that tape saying the same thing. I used to teach economics in college. I have a chapter on economics in this book. I pay tribute to a teacher I had, Mr. Cooper. And I knew the magnitude of this would be something to this effect. For every job that is displaced by this technology, it will create hundreds and thousands of new jobs. Because like I said, there'll be young people that'll come forward, this may not even be born yet, that they will create entire new industries with an energy device that they can run, manufacture anything upon the earth. You can do away with pollution. It's a known scientific fact that with enough electricity you can take any compound, break it down to its basic elements. But it costs too much by present means of trying to do this. Now this technology will make that no longer to be costly, very inexpensively, and we will then take what has normally been pollution, turn it back into basic elements and make useful products out of it. The time will come, and just like I state in this book, the time will come that you'll take pure electromagnetic energy and you will make mass out of that energy. Now I'm certain that that is true because you see it throughout the universe. Every element upon this earth is in the sun. The sun takes its mass, converts it into electromagnetic energy, sends it out in the universe. Some of it we are captured here on earth. You and I absorb it. Plants absorb it. They turn it back into mass. And we do that consistently throughout the universe. It's obvious to me the time will come and the whole world will be so far advanced that we will see so primitive and the people and our children and our grandchildren who look back at us, they will wonder why we did not see this and do this prior to now, because the knowledge has been there. But the status quo has fought it to keep it down, and there's nothing unusual about that.
No, it's been like that through the ages, and we got to break that cycle. But we do have a clip from a videotape, and I think with that now maybe let's run that tape because there's some good stuff on there. It is right at 10 minutes, and it's very interesting. So let's run the tape, and then we will see from there.
During this week, we've presented scientists and engineers who have tested the machine and not only agreed that the unit works, but that someday it will also power cars, planes, and ships. In short, they believe the invention of Joseph Newman could possibly change the world.
And Joseph Newman's work has been featured on national television and in hundreds of newspapers and magazines throughout the country.
What's the answer to the energy crisis? Suppose a fellow told you the answer was in a machine he has developed. Before you scoff, take a look with Bruce Hall.
In the backwoods of Mississippi, a mile down this dirt road, past the keep out and no trespassing signs, is the workshop of Joe Newman, a brilliant, self-educated inventor who says he has developed a machine that could solve the energy crisis.
What if someone invented a machine that would make the gasoline engine obsolete? What if someone invented a machine that produced more energy than it used? And that energy is cheap, non-polluting, and safe. That person would probably be hailed as the greatest scientist since Einstein, with a discovery as important as electricity and as revolutionary as the wheel. Joseph Wesley Newman claims to have invented just such a machine. He says that his energy machine could power every American home, farm, business, automobile, and appliance with electricity at a fraction of the present cost. More than 30 scientists and technicians have tested the energy machine, and they agree it works. Well, it's a fascinating story. First of all, if you can tell stupid people like me as sort of how this machine works.
Okay, Dave, it's basically is that you're not creating anything. You're simply utilizing energy that prior to this time hasn't been understood. It took us several thousand years to ever put a water wheel in moving water. And basically what I'm doing is utilizing the energy in the magnetic field that consists of matter in motion, exactly like a moving river does.
We are back. Well, would you welcome, please, Joseph Newman. Nice to meet you.
I appreciate you having me.
Do you think your machine, if it can be commercially made available, can, for example, a person would buy a 300 or 400 pound unit and all of a sudden would be able to produce all of the energy they need for their home? Is that certainly within the realm of possibility?
Exactly. I have absolutely no doubt about it. That such a device hooked to a home, a person will never have to pay for energy again. The device will be made smaller as put in an automobile, plane, spacecraft, you name it. This device...
Using the atoms from the magnetic field.
And what you're doing is that you're converting mass into energy on a 100% conversion process. That's one of the first prototypes, and that's a 700-pound magnetic rotor, and it's got about 8,000 pounds of wire around it. Now, it's gone down. That unit there weighs 135 pounds, and I showed that at the Hilton in New Orleans. There was approximately 2,500 people attended, 1,000 people outside, and another 1,500 standing to get in. And it would demonstrate something like 25 times more out than externally and put it into the system.
You get more wattage out of that than
than what you'd put in. In fact, Railback Battery Company is working with me now trying to design a battery to hold up to this recharging effect of this system, because not only will it run the device, it'll put more energy back into the battery pack than came out of it.
So you could, that's fascinating. Tell you what, we could stay here all night.
And now 31 people with scientific backgrounds have signed legal documents swearing to the machine's validity.
And Joe's gone beyond what you can read in textbooks. He's an original thinker. There are not many of those.
Newman motor can now be made ready for practical use in commercial and home energy needs in the very near future. If you doubt this strange story, you are not alone. One of the first to doubt was Dr. Roger Hastings, a PhD in physics from Minnesota. After conducting innumerable tests, Dr. Hastings no longer doubts.
Are you not talking about a machine that would change the world?
It certainly would.
Do you know how crazy that's going to sound to the people watching?
Well, just about as crazy as it sounded to me the first time I heard it. But my point of view is just that I have made measurements, I've seen enough experiments that are just not explainable on the basis of our present understanding of, my present understanding of physics. It's something that would really change the world, and it's something that any conscientious person can't walk away from. When you've seen something that puts out more energy than it takes in, and you've taken some measurements that tell you that's true, if you have any conscience at all, you can't walk away from that.
Astronaut Captain Ronald Evans approved the theory and recommended it to NASA. Shortly thereafter, in 1979, Dr. Robert Smith, Chief of Space Environments at NASA, wrote, "Because of your theory, several laws of physics may need to be re-examined." And then Dr. E.L. Moraine, one of the men involved in the making of the atomic bomb, wrote, "Your project will lead to developments that would be beneficial to all mankind."
I think he's found something that's, in my way of thinking, is probably the most significant discovery in the history of man.
There's a lot of people who said Joe believes in perpetual motion, or you get something from nothing. I'm just an old country boy, but I'm a hard-nosed guy, and you got to prove something to me.
The proof, says Newman, is his machine itself and the meters measuring energy in and energy out. They show more coming out and have attracted a flock of engineers and other experts to his backwoods laboratory. Nearly all have come away convinced that the man is onto something that could change the way we live, a virtually limitless source of free, non-polluting energy.
It would be a portable, condensed source of energy that can be taken to anywhere in the world in a suitcase, or perhaps smaller, and no part of the world now would have to be without energy.
For the past 5 months, we've been reporting on an inventor in Mississippi who claims he has a machine that will literally answer all of our energy problems. That's a claim that would seem ridiculous if he didn't have a growing number of experts who agree.
8 slightly used pin-like batteries in series were placed on a motor that was doing virtually no work.
That's it.
The batteries died in 1 minute and 15 seconds. Those dead, dry-cell batteries that are not supposed to recharge were then linked to a portable model of Mr. Newman's invention. The batteries turned a 90-pound magnet for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Then, because of a lack of time on our part, we removed the batteries.
We then reattached the batteries to the original motor. The motor ran 2 minutes and 28 seconds before the batteries died. That is twice as long as the first time, on batteries that are not supposed to recharge.
The magnet that used to rotate at about 30 revolutions per minute now spins at over 200 revolutions per minute. That means more energy and more accurate testing. Testing like that recently conducted by engineers from Wisconsin, Minnesota, California, and Louisiana. One representative of Rayovac Batteries watched the testing and then stated,
"It would appear that there's more energy coming out than the batteries are delivering."
I think it'll change the general way that most of atomic physics is viewed, and perhaps much, much more than that.
The Mississippi inventor who claims he has a device that will solve the world's energy problems came to New Orleans today. Many felt that the demonstration of his device would attract only a few. Those that believe that were wrong. For years, Joseph Newman has fought a lonely fight over a bizarre-looking energy device that he claims will change the world. Today, the machine looks a little different, and the fight continues, but he is no longer alone. This was the scene at the New Orleans Hilton Hotel today. Over 1,000 people crammed into a ballroom to hear Newman, and more than 1,000 more waiting outside. At the podium was the usual complement of scientists who have supported Newman for the past 2 years, but there are also some new faces. Actor Eddie Albert, who hopes to draw President Reagan's attention to Newman's fight, and Canadian businessmen who have plans for the Newman device.
We hope that in the near future we can make some arrangement with Mr. Newman to have this machine production in Canada to benefit the people up there.
Inventor Joe Newman of Loosedale, Mississippi claims that scaled up, his machine will replace all conventional fuel sources. Today,
this thing that he calls a gyroscopic particle, in essence, becomes the new atom. This prototype, from the testing we've recently done, can be scaled up with very little additional work to produce enough power to at least run as an auxiliary power plant in a home.
It's going to be the Industrial Revolution all over again, except greatly accelerated. Every aspect of science will be touched by the technology that I teach. It'll open many doors.
Yeah, that was pretty good, wasn't it? Very interesting. Why don't we show a phone number from where people can call and actually talk to Joseph and get to find out how they can help out in making sure that this happens. I also looked in your book here. I saw that you were offered an enormous amount of money for this patent. Not the patent, but for the invention.
Yes.
Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I've had two big great offers. Once I had a conference call in the early 80s, and people offered me open-ended checks. Said, Miss Newman, we checked you out. We know you're dedicated. You name your price, and we'll match it. And I said, no, thank you. It's not for sale. I said, you tell me that you'll get behind it, make a quality product, stand behind it, put out a reasonable price. I'll be glad to work a license agreement. The guy said, let us think about it. And after that, all kind of heck started breaking out against me. But then, within a year of that time, a gentleman from Sacramento brought some people down from Canada, and they had a cashier's check for $214 million. And they were very much saying that they were going to get behind this technology, that they had a federal government thing in Canada at the time. The government would be backing it, and they wanted to buy the rights for Canada. And I read the contract, and it was a good contract, but I wanted three things added to it. And it's just good business. I said, I want you to put on there, you're going to make a quality product, stand behind it, put it at a reasonable price. And the guy got extremely uppity with me. Oh, no, Joe, if we give you that kind of money, we don't owe you nothing. You know, it's talking down to me. And it put a rage in me. And I told the man in no uncertain terms to get off my property. In fact, the people that he had brought sued the man in Sacramento because he had told them that he could almost guarantee them that I would accept their offer. And it was interesting to me that afterwards he wrote a letter in my behalf, you know, that I had shown to you, that I had turned down that $214 million.
Yeah, I see that letter in there.
Yeah, and you can see it in there, and it's talking about $214 million, $214 million, and he says why I did, that I was worried that these people would sit on it because the fact they wouldn't put on there, they was going to make a quality product, stand behind it, and put it at a reasonable price. I could draw no other conclusion. And most people wonder, why would you turn it down? It's because I know the magnitude of what this will do for humanity.
Well, you know, it's very obvious that for the first of all, they were going to shelf it. You can be sure of that.
Yes.
And for the second, it's very obvious also that they wouldn't pay you $218 million unless they knew it worked.
No, they wouldn't. And I think what they had thought they could do is get me to bite for a little bit. You know, I sell one country. Then they get me to sell another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And they just don't understand when somebody is not interested in funds, but they have this great desire to do something good for humanity. And that's why that they have not been able to work anything with me.
That's the wrong kind of people to deal with. I saw also in there is something here that resembles an anti-gravity device.
Oh yes, it is. And Dr. Hastings, who had made a comment before I did this to an attorney in Washington, He didn't think I'd ever be able to do this on the Earth. He thought I could do it in outer space. 2 weeks later, he was at this demonstration of a space device. And I took a helium balloon, I wrapped it with fine wire, I hooked it to a battery pack. I could make it rise. If I changed the polarity of the battery, it turned around 180 degrees. I could pulsate it and make this just hover. And now Dr. Hastings weighed this on a scale. Then he stated somewhere right around in here that if this device was 1,000 feet in diameter and something like 400 feet thick, it'd lift a 400-ton payload. Now that makes space travel become a reality. That's the magnitude of this technology. It will carry us into outer space. And another thing I have done is that I know you can exceed the speed of light. And I'll tell the young people how you can do this very simply, is that if you create a tremendous electromagnetic field, now Einstein is right that the gyroscopic particles, as you hit them, and they did the same thing in the cyclotrons, and they were amazed by it. When they took an electron, got close to the speed of light, all of a sudden they had so many particles formed, they used the technology. It was like clowns pouring out of an automobile. They didn't know where this came from. And it's very obvious where it came from. They use these phenomenal electromagnets that accelerate this electron. Yet they say that this phenomenal electromagnetic field has nothing to do with the test. In no way can it enter into it. And I see that's totally unthinking, because what happens is, it's just like Einstein said, is you get close to the speed of light, as this gyroscopic particle is moving very, very slow, the electron is moving slow, the gyroscopic particle is going at the speed of light, and the electron is massive, it goes right through there without touching anything. Now as it gets close to the speed of light, then all the gyroscopic particles making up the electron, then they hit these other gyroscopic particles. This is going at the speed of light, this is going at the speed of light, they're going to collide. And the denser the magnetic field is, the more matter is going to be formed. Because what happens is when that gyroscopic particle hits the gyroscopic particles in an electron, these move at right angles, and they hit other particles, they start gyrating around each other, and they start forming mass. And I'm certain that's what occurs. That's the same thing would occur as you travel in outer space, getting close to the speed of light, because the gyroscopic particles make up the electromagnetic field to prevail our galaxy. But the way you beat it is simple. Einstein was correct, but he admitted he was not mechanical, very mechanical. The way you beat it is simple. You create a tremendous electromagnetic field. You get a pointed electromagnetic field. Now what will happen is these gyroscopic particles come in, they will glaze off of it exactly as that bullet glazed off that water. And as a result of it, the mass will not come infinite. So what will happen is your speed will get faster and faster and faster as you go toward another solar system or another galaxy, because you got the inverse square law. As you get closer and closer, you're accelerating. That's where Newtonian mechanics come into effect. Until you get some outside force to act upon that, it will continuously accelerate. You can exceed the speed of light.
Well, the mathematical formulas for travel faster than the speed of light has been on the books for some time, actually.
Yeah, and see, I hadn't even heard that fact, but see, I'm certain that you can from a mechanical aspect of it, is if they look at what they see in a cyclotron already, they look back and listen to what I'm saying, they can see that as they get close to the speed of light with that electron, these gyroscopic particles are going to hit every other gyroscopic particle in that electron. These particles are going to move at right angles with that force. Then they fly in the face of other gyroscopic particles, just like one car. If you see a wreck, it'll get into traffic and hit 6 other cars and cause a random, that's the same thing. Then they start gyrating around each other. And what's so amazing to me is that the energy in a gyroscopic particle moves constantly. Now, totally opposite of what we see, like in this table and the floors, we see solid objects. But the entire universe is in motion. The basic building block of all matter is motion. And the gyroscopic particle, which is interesting to me, is that if you go one way, and this is what I saw, and I'll make a statement in here, I sit in awe upon the realization of this ingenious mechanism that is so simple it befalls the mind. Because all matter is made up of one particle, not two. Now they say it's made up of negative and positive. That is not correct. Only to us, the observer, does it appear that way. Let's say you and I are on the gyroscope. Just think about it. Now we're moving by and some giant's watching us, and he pushes down on the gyroscope that we're on. And let's say we come toward him, he says that's positive. We go around, turn around, come back. Now he pushes down and we go away from him. He calls it negative. Now you and I are saying no. We're still the same entity. Now, he would argue that it's a negative and positive effect. And that's when I realized that the entire universe is made up of one gyroscopic particle. And I said, I sit in awe upon the realization of this ingenious mechanism that's so simple it befuddles the mind. That's the magnitude of what this technology is. The entire universe consists of this one gyroscopic particle, you and I and every element within the universe. And that's the way that we have to travel in the universe, is through electromagnetic energy. And that's the magnitude of what this is, and that's the magnitude of what this will do for the human race. And at some point, if I can, I'd like to read 2 pages that I wrote to the young people.
Well, who am I to argue? I mean, you have created a machine here that actually does something that for the last 100 years has been told to us that it's impossible to do. And let's, I would like you to read that, but let's first, let me ask you one thing now.
Sure.
You have been at this for a while.
Yes, I have.
And I know that you had a fight with the Patent Bureau. And we got time here for just another 2 minutes before you can start reading here.
Okay.
That fight with the Patent Bureau has been kind of lengthy, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And it caused Congressman Livingston, who was head of the Republican study committee, to write a 5-page report, which I put in this book, saying that Congress should act because the U.S. Patent Office had not followed the formalities of the patent law, had violated my civil rights and my American rights, as well as a judge, Thomas Penfield Jackson, which he named, and that Congress should act to see that this patent issues so that people would get behind it and it would be produced because of the tremendous magnitude it would have upon the people of this nation and the world. Now, that's by Bob Livingston, who was the head of the Republican Study Committee at the time. He himself was damning the U.S. Patent Office and the federal court with Thomas Penfield Jackson. Now, people should think about that, because what I've always said is that this conspiracy is not against Joseph Newman. It's against you, the people.
Mankind.
Yeah, and mankind, and that's why I want mankind to stand up behind me, because I fight for them, and together we will win, and history shows that we will win. And I'm hopeful if I can get the young people to see this, because it's their future. It's like Max Planck said. It's a sad commentary for the human race, but it's true. And the advancement of new technology is not done by the old. They die away. It's the young who grew up familiar with it that bring it forward. And so I'm depending on what Plato had written about, was the vigor of the young people. They always want to change the status quo. We're coming up into the new millennium. This is the time to bring this technology forward. It's their future. It's their generation. We've had ours. It's theirs. And that's why I'm hoping that I can get the students here at the college to get behind this. Then they can spread it across to every other college. The world will be woken up to it. And it'll go forward. And once it comes out, you watch. The status quo people will then join in behind it. History shows that. And then what happens? The people themselves benefit.
We have something here that you wanted to read that will be more or less directed towards the young people, right?
Yes, it is. And I wrote this in 1984. And if you have any children, even if they're asleep, I wish you'd wake them up. And the reason I want this is simple. I wrote this to them. I believe in what Max Planck said. This is their future, and I want them to believe in themselves. And if you wake them up and ask them to listen to what I read to them, you'll know that I speak from my heart to them. And with that, let me just get started.
Go ahead.
It's titled The Pursuit of Truth. As I conclude the final chapter, I feel a burden lifted from my shoulders. In slightly more than 2 months, I will be 49 years old. For nearly 50 years, I have deeply cared for humanity and strived to improve the quality of life upon the planet. For over 20 years, I have fought for you, the people, who are now alive and who are yet to be born. Many of my closest friends have sincerely urged me to include only topics relating to pure science in my book rather than these other numerous subjects. My friends are concerned that you, the people, would dismiss all of my work if you become offended by any subject that I have discussed. I told my friends I fully recognize this possibility, and yet it does not deter me in any way. The reason is simple. I'm not promoting Joseph Newman. I'm promoting you, the people, and urging you to recognize the sleeping lion that lies within you. I urge you to stir yourselves, awaken, and begin to question, think, and act to produce truth, which equals goodness. I believe in you, the people, more than you believe in yourselves. We've been given a most precious gift, a powerful mind capable of questioning, reasoning, thinking, creating, loving, being merciful, acting, seeking, and producing absolute truth, which equals goodness. So teach your young children and stimulate their curiosity. This will do more toward producing a meaningful, happy life for your children than all the dogma you receive by a non-educational process of memorization. I've been discussing the happiness, the well-being, and the future of our children and of children yet to be born. To achieve and ensure these desirable goals, I warmly recommend that a single language be developed and taught on a worldwide basis to supplement conventional languages. This new single language must be independent of any other known language in the world. Such a new single language must be based on consistent logic, similar to mathematics, rather than memorization and imprecision. Present languages are deficient in strict logic and only serve to interfere with the creative processes one enjoys when writing one's work. I write from experience. This new single language can be achieved if we question, think, create, and act. The young children throughout the world who are taught such a new single language will automatically feel closer and less suspicious of the children of other countries. When such children become adults, they will be more eager to talk, share, solve, care, and produce peace, love, and goodness. I have provided the world a unified field technology and a new energy innovations, which I sincerely believe, if used creatively, would do more to generate world peace than efforts of all kings, queens, presidents, dictators who have ever lived. But for this to occur, it is imperative that we teach our young children to cherish and use the natural birthright of their questioning minds, and always, yes, always seek the pursuit of absolute truth, which equals goodness. The energy technology I have innovated, which combined with the merger of economics and mechanization, will result in a most beneficial working life and meaningful life for all humanity. I can envision the time when you, the people, would only need to work no more than 1 hour a week, and possibly less, to achieve the material things of life necessary to enjoy an adequate physical existence for your family. There are those unthinking doomsayers who will blindly state, quote, if people only need to work an hour or less each week to live, then such people will become worthless. I shout in response, not so. I see the truth of what I write by the twinkling of the eyes of our young children, especially those who are 5 years old or less. Such young children need not work to live, yet such children are consistently motivated to learn, understand, improve, please, and most of all, to love. I shout the following, take this natural birthright, stimulate it, and nurture it to maturity. If this is done, then whatever profession our youth pursue, they will strive to achieve results, will be beneficial to themselves and the beholder, the people. If children are so stimulated, becoming adults, they only need to work 1 hour or less a week for conventional necessities, then such an adult with a stimulated natural birthright will consistently be productive, creative, and generate meaningful endeavors. Such endeavors would result in greater beauty and significance to the beholder of the people. Such pleasing results, consistently enjoyed by the beholder, the people, would only further stimulate the people to be constructive for one another. If people have been taught what is truly important in life, they will realize that caring and sharing for the benefit of others and not material acquisition can only bring happiness. I speak from years of experience. I truly, physically and mentally hurt when I see people suffer misery, despair, and unhappiness. I smile when I see people smile, care, love, share, are constructive and produce goodness. I'm smiling now because I can envision the positive results for the people of the future who are educated as I have described. If I have succeeded to any degree in contributing to that goodness of the future, then I sense a deep inner peace which is beyond all worldly material wealth. Even at this instance, I smile peacefully and warmly with tears in my eyes for the young children of the world who are yet to be born. With all my inner being, I speak to all young children. You can accomplish anything, anything to which you wish to apply your powerful mind. It does not seem improbable to me that the gyroscopic energy comprising electromagnetic fields of matter in motion can be utilized in the proper mathematical combinations and proportions to create any substance in the universe. It does not seem improbable to me that aging and disease can be fully controlled and reversed by this same energy. How is the human body composed and how does it function? By electromagnetic energy, gyroscopic energy. It does not seem improbable to me that the mind is fully capable of feats that have yet to be imagined. The physical basis of ESP may be easily explained by the laws of electromagnetic induction. I am quite certain that the entities which I have worked on throughout my life will be toys to future children and are very likely already toys to children inhabiting other solar systems. We are composed of the same gyroscopic electromagnetic energy throughout the universe, and the fluctuations of such energy affect us physically and mentally. This indicates that a new electromagnetic mechanism can be developed and installed within a human habitat or carried on a person, which would be physiologically and psychologically beneficial. It should be obvious to the individual who assumes the responsibility for such a device that the effects of electromagnetic energy can be beneficial or harmful depending on how employed. I've endeavored to increase your awareness that your brain is a powerful electromagnetic generator as well as a receiver of electromagnetic waves. Your only limitation is the limitation you place upon yourself. It is more than likely that anything you can imagine is possible. I've envisioned space travel becoming a commonplace within 20 years. There will be a continuous source of energy and the ability to travel to those solar systems at the speed of light or possibly faster. I have given this subject much thought, and I've developed a technology hypothesis that means to achieve speeds exceeding that for light. There will be an end to environmental pollution caused by processes involving coal, oil, gas, or nuclear fuels. Deserts can be transformed into oases. Salt water can be readily and inexpensively converted into fresh water, with extracted minerals being used productively, and on and on and on. I repeat, I'm made humble by the realization of this ingenious working of our universe. I strive to bestow in the reader's mind the visions of grandeur and excitement which I see so clearly for the future. Such visions lie within our immediate grasp, and especially the grasp of our young children. I now conclude 20 years of my life's work. I hope that I will contribute even more in years to come. Remember, if I think you hurt, then I hurt for you. If I think you smile, then I smile with you. I send my love to you, and I hope you will multiply your love to others. I conclude this book with a note from my writings, dated Friday, 9 p.m., April the 19th, 1968. Quote, "To all people whose brain burns and aches to accomplish great things and changes for the good, may God and the goodness of the universe be with you, for you are the goodness of the universe and do good for the people in spite of themselves, and I salute you, Joseph Wesley Newman." Now that's the magnitude that I think that this will do for humanity, and that's why I have been so dedicated to bring this forward for humanity, and money doesn't interest me.
Well, I tell you, that really makes you think. If mankind got behind something like this and created commonality like this, I think there's probably very little that we could not do.
There isn't any, and so we're coming up on the year 2000, it's new millennium, and there's a lot of people who have written about the age of Aquarius, and we can achieve that if we all work together. Now, we can choose not to, we can choose to be greedy and stupid as we have been, we can keep contaminating the earth, and it doesn't take much sense if we graft that to see what we're going to leave for our children and our grandchildren.
Absolutely.
But it's their future. If we can get the children here to get into the college, to get behind this, then we can help spread it across the earth.
Yep. Let us show that telephone number again, and where they can reach Joseph Newman in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're getting down to the bone here. I think we got a minute and a half left. I want to ask you now, what if the last message that you want to give to the viewers, is there anything that they can do to participate in helping this to happen?
Yeah, even if I had even 8,000 people who came forward and even put down a down payment of about $70, you know, on a down payment on this invention, which will sell for $7,000, just a down payment, then it would give me additional money to mass produce this technology for the people of the nation and the world. There's a lot of different ways that people can get involved, but that's just one simple example. Is I've given my life, I've turned down a lot of money, which other people would have accepted, and I've had many people say, well, Joe, you're a fool for not taking that, and my comment has always been to them, well, when you meet God, I want you to tell them that. They always drop their face and walk away from me. But that's the magnitude of what this will be, and see, I hope to stimulate the young people. It's them that will bring our civilization forward into the 20th century.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for coming on.
Well, I sure appreciate it.
I enjoyed this very much. We will stay in contact, and we'll keep people informed of what is happening. Also, a last message here: on Saturday nights, watch the news here at 8 o'clock, same place, same station. And thank you for watching.